Ops 4 hasn't been perfect by any means, though not really any game is really perfect, but if I'm being honest, it's been lackluster at times, and that's not even from a negative perspective or the fact that I hate the game or anything. In fact, I truly love it. That being the base of the game and that being things like Blackout and the MP is still enjoyable to me as well, and talking simply fundamentally, not necessarily the things that are added in on top like the MTX, because that stuff we've been very vocal against, but you get my picture here. But simply from an unbiased and completely objective standpoint, when you take a look at the game compared to, say, even World War II last year, there's just simply been well below the same pace of content released to players, whether that be in the way of new game modes, new events, new weaponry, new DLC maps, and so on and so forth. From the likes of that weaponry to the community-driven aspects, the lackluster portion comes in just simply the amount that has been trickling down since launch. We have well below the content of what World War II offered in a month in hand in terms of how long the game's already been out compared to World War II as of last year. Now, it's been long hinted and rumored that the game went through some internal turmoil, and if that's the case, we may never know specifically, but there's always been those rumors that it was never meant to be Black Ops 4 and it got forced into being it, or that they had to scrap the advanced movement aspect of the game, or they had to start from the ground up, or it was initially like an Overwatch look-alike and then the game changed from there after outrage from that, and other rumors alike. But truthfully, we'll probably never know exactly what happened, though things definitely felt off. As we talked about on Sunday, there was that, of course, big brouhaha with the Kotaku article that did mention that there were some things that happened on the back end, and while we don't know those particulars right now, in the very near future we may. And in light of not only that section, but also the fact that Treyarch is now being tasked with the theoretical, or maybe even confirmed, depending on how you interpret the wording of the article, Black Ops 5 in 2020, not their normally scheduled 2021. So we're going to talk about what this all means for Black Ops 4 now, because we talked about the future, but I want to take a more micromanaged look at the game at hand right now, and maybe it being a clarification in some regards to the falling short that Black Ops 4 may have had with some of the community. That said, like we mentioned, it's always been apparent to me personally, but as of late, especially with the new operation launching in the way of Spectre Rising, we're in what, like week 4 now or something like this at this point, and there really hasn't been anything that's happened save for a few playlist updates or anything of that like, which is really curious given the fact that we normally see that tail off normally happen towards week 7 to 10 or so before the next operation begins. The first few weeks are normally when players are engaged with and their interest is pulled into the game. They keep the content coming so that players don't immediately lose interest for 10 weeks, which is where we're kind of currently getting to be. So in terms of the Black Ops 4 content aspect, that big question mark of what's even happening, this might actually answer that. Black Ops 4 might be getting neglected in a sense because, well, Black Ops 5 is in full effect for making that happen as of not this upcoming year with Infinity Ward, but the year after that in 2020. So not this upcoming theoretical November, but next November in that launch. For a little recap for you guys that missed the video, Raven actually was tasked with being the primary developer for 2020, and Sledgehammer was going to be the supporting dev, kind of flip-flopping where everything was on World War II, kind of vice versa on that. But due to conflicts and due to some poaching of Sledgehammer employees from Michael Condrey's newly formed studio with 2K, things just did not work out. A lot of conflict happened, and Activision kind of stepped in and was like, you know what, you're not going to do this anymore. So they then reassigned Treyarch to end up taking the helm and working with those two, with Sledgehammer and Raven both being supporting devs to Treyarch in 2020, and Black Ops 5 being picked up for that year's game. We talked about the fact that this might actually be a good thing in terms of having 3 developers working on one single title, meaning that, say, Treyarch can work on MP, Sledgehammer can work on single player, and Raven can work on co-op or something like that, which in that sense, the seesaw balance of it could work out amazing or it could also be a jumbled mess comes into play. But simply talking from Treyarch's end, I can guarantee you almost that the studio has been parted out to work on the next title already, which means very best case scenario, we probably have 50% of the staff working on Black Ops 4 currently. Don't get me wrong, it is something that is absolutely normal for the devs to break away and start working on their next title around this time of year because, well, 7 months in, there's not all that much content left to make because normally that stuff is planned out in advance. I remember I had a conversation with Jason Blundell, my very first trip out to Los Angeles and visiting Treyarch in Black Ops 3. That was for DLC 2 in, I believe, April or something like that at the time. And so whenever I was talking to him, he was saying, yeah, we're putting up the finishing touches on DLC 4, which of course comes later on in the summer at that that point. So they're well ahead of schedule in terms of planning and getting that bigger stuff ready. But as for things like a contraband stream or something like that, this year I have honestly no idea. But regardless, half the team has probably already moved on to Black Ops 5. And doesn't that make so much sense? To me, that explains almost all of the missing content, because I can guarantee you that this wasn't a change up that happened just as of a couple of days ago when this information broke. This has probably been in the works now for months, and they've had to try and play catch up on not only Black Ops 4, but also prepping Black Ops 5 for 2020. So to me, this is the plain as day explanation here for it, that unfortunately, right now, the current offering is getting neglected because they're already having to work on something else. They're just stretched too thin to keep up with the development for the next title, but also give the adequate amount of content for Black Ops 4. Now, the other big part that honestly is a huge explanation point here for me is that while again, it's not confirmed, due to that article, it seems incredibly likely this is the case. Black Ops 4's MTX system has been absolute trash. I will say that plain as day, and for anyone as many times as they want to say it. I do enjoy the idea of having the ability to get whatever I want when I want it, like how we saw back in, say, Black Ops 2 with the camos and everything like that, and it started out decent. We had things in the shop and we had things in the contraband stream that you could grind out. Of course, at first, the contraband stream was very inaccessible to those that weren't actually grinding the game out 24/7, and microtransactions in the shop were a little steep, but they only got worse as time progressed. We ended up seeing things introduced in reserves, and whether or not they want to call it supply drops or not, they were supply drops. Those were reintroduced, and the only way to get 3 items instead of 1 per supply drop is to simply pay $2 each. And so therefore we had a ton of things added into the reserve loot pool. Then we had a ton of things that are jacked up in price, such as different bundles that only end up bringing that price up because of reserve crates or cases. And so therefore it just became a very MTX heavy game. I've said it a couple of times and I will still stand by it until there's a change made. I feel like every larger content update has at its core something that is absolutely awesome. The update itself is really cool, introducing some cool stuff, but there's always that one thing added in that absolutely overshadows it and absolutely kills the update for me. And it mostly is due to, again, the MTX system. So to me, this game is nothing more than a beta. Black Ops 4 is a stepping stone to kind of pedal away from what we know Call of Duty having been for the past 10 years or so, and then ending up going into the future, because Jason Schreier ended up saying that Activision executives have been fiddling around with the idea of a free-to-play nature as one of their primary business models. They already do it with a bunch of their mobile games they end up having, and so Call of Duty could very similarly follow suit. Now, this was even mentioned as early as the next Modern Warfare game, i.e. what is presumably Modern Warfare 4 coming later this fall, but we don't know exactly to what extent at this moment, but that would make so much sense again on this front as well. Activision knows that Treyarch can get away with so much more than, say, Sledgehammer could with World War II, or Infinity Ward could with Infinite Warfare and Ghosts previously, so they use this as the testing ground and the stomping grounds. Test around and play around with the pricing strategies for microtransactions in-game on a base game of already $60, depending on if you bought the season pass. Well, of course, that's even more, but then they can end up getting an accurate depiction of where that sweet spot is for the consumers to buy and engage with the microtransactions, and then introduce the game as free to play, to which maybe then it exponentially blows up the player counts so that even more people are buying those microtransactions. That's essentially the entire business model of what, say, Fortnite does and how they end up making their money, and they practically print money at that. So Activision executives would be absolutely stupid to not consider this. Again, whether or not you think it will work out, or even if it does work out, that's an entirely different story. But to me, it just shows that this was all done for a reason, and this year of air quote torture might lead to something better, or it might not. But it was all in the end a calculated risk Activision and Treyarch ended up having to take. I'm not saying that by any means that it's justified what has happened here. I really don't think that there should even be that just even 1 year of a base game and a season pass plus egregious microtransaction prices, but that would explain everything. So probably not the best or most flattering way to put it, but to me, Black Ops 4 is literally just one giant beta for all sorts of things still to come. Now, that's my interpretation, and a very loose one at that, on reading up on all this developments of all the stuff happening on the back end that the public normally doesn't see. But again, it would answer so many questions. Why has there not been as much content as last year? Why is there so little communication? Why is there no real hints towards upcoming stuff that may be on the near horizon that's really cool? Why is there so much in terms of overly priced items when in reality they should be nowhere near that? It just answers way too many questions and is such a logical answer that I can't see it really being anything else. I really do think that there, of course, was some internal stuff that happened within Black Ops 4. I have absolutely no inside information to know if it actually did or not, but the way that I see it from an outside perspective, it seems that way. And also now seeing that things are going to have to split, I really do think that, well, this 3 years of support may turn into maybe a year and a half at that, maybe most, and then an already shorter attention span on the just name of Black Ops 4 is being made even shorter. So that said, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. I just wanted to have a brief discussion here with you because I feel like I didn't go as in depth into Black Ops 4 as I had hoped, but with so much on the plate as is on Sunday's video, there really wasn't much room to fit it in there. So I want to just have a discussion here with you guys and maybe talk some things that may even clear the air on Black Ops 4 and what may have been a subpar outing for fan expectations. But that said, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure you drop a like down below. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure you guys subscribe so you don't miss a single thing regarding all things Black Ops 4, MP, Blackout, Zombies. We got you covered the best of updates, news, information, tips, tricks, all that good stuff. So if any of that interests you, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single thing. If you guys also want to follow me over on Twitter and Instagram, those are the best places to get connected outside of YouTube. Try to move on both those. If you guys want to strike the conversation, ask me a question, whatever it may be, that link is down there in the description below. But let's end out of the way. Thank you guys all so much for watching. Minus Espresso. I'll see you guys later. Take care and peace.